You are paying for a name on a dial. That is the entire business model. And in the next few minutes, you are going to see exactly which watches are built on that LIE and which ones are not. 8 watches. Real cost breakdowns. No brand loyalty. Let's get into it. Number 8. The Invicta Pro Diver. Here is the thing about Invicta. The company has built an entire empire on one trick: fake retail prices. The watch you see on shopping channels listed at $499 has a wholesale acquisition cost somewhere between $18 and $30. The movement inside is a Miyota 8926, a perfectly serviceable Japanese automatic that Seiko-affiliated brands sell in far more honest packages for under $150 retail. But Invicta does not sell watches. Invicta sells the psychological relief of crossing out a $500 price tag. The FTC has received consumer complaints about Invicta's reference pricing practices for over a decade. The discount is the product. The watch is almost beside the point. Number 7. The Fossil Gen Series Smartwatch. The Fossil Gen 5. An overpriced fashion smartwatch. Fossil spent the better part of 3 years and hundreds of millions of dollars in marketing budget trying to convince the world that they were a technology company. They are not. They are a fashion company that licensed Wear OS and put it inside a case that costs $11 to manufacture in China. The Gen 5 retailed at $255. Tear it apart and you find a Snapdragon Wear 3100 chipset that Google's own data showed was already outdated at launch, a battery that lasts roughly a day under real use, and a display that costs less than $8 to produce. Fossil's own 10K filings show licensing fees and marketing spending accounting for over 60% of operating costs. When you buy a Fossil smartwatch, you are buying a $250 reminder that you did not buy a Garmin. Number 6. Tag Heuer Connected. Let's be precise here. Tag Heuer is a legitimate luxury mechanical watchmaker with over a century of credible history. The Connected, however, is not. The Connected is a $1,500 smartwatch running Wear OS on a Snapdragon chip, the same platform that Fossil and Skagen use for watches that retail for $200. You are paying $1,300 for a Tag logo and a sapphire crystal over hardware that will be functionally obsolete in 36 months. The mechanical side of the house makes watches that hold value. The Connected depreciates like a leased Toyota. Tag knows this. The marketing materials for the Connected do not mention depreciation once. Number 5. Vincero watches. Social media built this brand, and it is exactly what you are buying. Vincero's cost of goods on their most popular chronograph sits between $22 and $35, based on comparable original equipment manufacturer pricing from the same Chinese manufacturers they publicly acknowledge using. Its retail price is $165. The movement is a Japanese quartz or a Chinese mechanical depending on the model. Neither is disclosed with any specificity on their website. What is disclosed, obsessively, is the lifestyle, the Instagram grid, the athlete partnerships. A 2021 consumer analysis estimated Vincero's customer acquisition cost through influencer spend at roughly $40 to $50 per unit sold. So of your $165, approximately $50 went to a fitness influencer to convince you the watch was worth $165. The math on that one takes a minute to sit with. Number 4. MVMT watches. Vincero's blueprint was executed earlier, and it was sold to Movado Group for $100 million in 2018. That tells you everything about who the real customer was. MVMT watches retail between $95 and $150. The movements are Japanese quartz or Chinese mechanical clones. The cases are finished to a standard that any watchmaker will tell you reflects a direct cost of $12 to $20. MVMT's entire valuation was built on social media reach, not on horological merit. Movado bought the audience. When you buy an MVMT watch, you are not buying a watch. You are buying the residual cultural momentum of a marketing campaign that has since moved on to newer victims. Number 3. Breitling Super Ocean Heritage. Here is where this gets uncomfortable. Breitling is a real watchmaker. Their aviation instruments are legitimate tools with real provenance. The Super Ocean Heritage, however, is a lifestyle product priced at a tool watch level, between $3,000 and $4,000 retail, carrying a movement that Breitling sources from ETA and Kinesi, at a cost that independent analysis places around $200 to $250 for the caliber itself. The case finishing, bracelet, and sapphire crystal add perhaps another $200. You are paying $3,000 for components that total under $500 in build cost. That gap is brand equity, marketing overhead, and distribution margin. Breitling will tell you that is fair, but Breitling also spent $40 million in 2022 on brand ambassadors and advertising. That money came from somewhere. It came from your wrist. Number 2. Daniel Wellington. The single most successful watch marketing operation of the last 15 years. Daniel Wellington's quartz watches retail between $100 and $200. The movements are generic Miyota or Chinese quartz, costing under $4 wholesale. The cases and straps are assembled to a quality level that independent reviewers consistently place at the $20 tier. The entire company was built on gifting watches to Instagram influencers in 2011 and 2012, before influencer gifting was a known playbook. Forbes estimated Daniel Wellington's marketing spend accounted for over 70% of revenue in peak growth years. The product was never the point. The feed was the point. Every time you see that clean white dial on someone's wrist in a coffee shop photo, you are looking at a $4 movement in a marketing vehicle. Daniel Wellington is not a watch company. It is a content distribution company that manufactures props. Number 1. The Rolex Submariner, the gray market version. Let's be surgical here. The new Rolex Submariner from an authorized dealer is a legitimate watch, and it has a legitimate argument for its price. This entry is about the gray market Submariner, which retails at premiums of 40 to 80% above the manufacturer's suggested retail price, meaning you are paying $9,000 to $12,000 for a watch, with a manufacturer's suggested retail price of $9,100. Here is the manufacturing reality. Rolex's vertical integration is genuine. Their movements are legitimately in-house, and their quality control is arguably the best in the industry at scale. The base product earns its manufacturer's suggested retail price. But the gray market premium you are paying is not for the watch. It is for someone else's impatience, laundered as scarcity. Rolex intentionally constrains supply, a practice antitrust regulators in several European markets have scrutinized without resolution to sustain the gray market premium as an aspirational signal. When you pay $12,000 for a $9,000 watch, the $3,000 difference bought you zero additional watch. It bought you the story that you paid $12,000 for a watch. The Submariner is genuinely excellent. The gray market Submariner is a tax on wanting to be seen wearing one. Now here is what actually earns your money. Everything changes here. The Seiko Prospex SPB series. Manufacture movement. In-house caliber 6 R35 beating at 45 hours of power reserve. Sapphire crystal. Screw-down crown. Genuine ISO 6425 dive certification. Retail price, $650 to $800. Seiko estimates movement development and manufacturing cost at over 40% of retail, a ratio that virtually no fashion watch brand comes close to. Seiko does not spend 40% of revenue on influencers. Seiko spends it on the thing inside the case. That is the entire story. That is the difference. The Orient, Mako, and Ray series. Under $150 for an in-house automatic movement, Orient's F6922 caliber designed and assembled entirely by Orient's own engineers. Hackable, hand-windable, accurate to within 15 seconds per day from the factory. The case is brushed stainless. The crystal is mineral rather than sapphire, and the bracelet is functional rather than luxurious. But the movement is honest. Orient makes the movement. Orient controls the quality. Orient does not outsource the thing that makes a watch and then charge you for a brand story. At $140, the Orient Mako is what a watch is supposed to be. A machine that tells you the time, built by people who know how to build machines. The Tissot PRX Powermatic 80. Here is where the mid-range gets serious. The PRX at $750 contains the ETA Powermatic 80 caliber, a movement with 80 hours of power reserve, accuracy standards close to COSC, and a silicium hairspring that makes it genuinely resistant to magnetic interference. The case finishing and integrated bracelet construction are executed at a standard that watches twice its price struggle to match. Tissot is owned by the Swatch Group alongside Longines and Omega, and the component sourcing advantages of that structure are passed, in part, to the consumer. The PRX is what happens when a company chooses to compete on engineering rather than advertising. It is not a status symbol. It is a very good watch. Those are not the same thing, and the watch industry has spent 100 years hoping you never notice. You came here knowing something was off. You have been right the whole time. The watches that make collectors cringe are not cringe because they are ugly. They are cringe because they are honest about nothing. Not their costs, not their movements, not what they are actually selling you. A collector does not hate your Vincero. A collector is just watching someone pay $140 for a marketing deck and call it a timepiece. The brands at the top of this list share one defining characteristic: the gap between what they cost to make and what they cost to buy is filled entirely with your willingness to believe their story. The brands worth your money share a different characteristic. They spent the budget where you cannot see it, inside the case. That is the only question worth asking before you buy any watch. What did they build, and what did they just make you believe? Drop the watch you think belongs on this list in the comments. Collectors already know what it is.